Welcome to yet another edition of Fresh Off the Boat. Today I'll be interviewing or reconnecting, chatting with a very dear student I've always had great memories working with. 2013-14 is what I recall. We
Yeah,
had an interesting sort of experience, and it was more like a mentor-mentor relationship. You taught us so many things. You also helped with generating videos for us. First time we ever went on social media. So yeah, great memories. So here's Arjun Kakkar, namesake. Yeah, we are all pretty awesome about that. And Arjun Kakkar, you graduated from DPS RK Puram, the sort of
yeah,
hotbed in New Delhi, where all the talent comes out from. And I don't know where they go, but yeah, we're going to be following your journey today.
yeah.
So, you were the one student. You graduated from Williams in 2018, but I remember actually checking out Williams College, and you're the only student I've actually been to the campus with when you
Yeah,
were checking the college out
that
before
was a
going
wild
in.
experience. Yeah,
that, that is so kind of very different for me to do, but it was so much fun.
yep,
So we loved it. I think the tour, the weather wasn't that great that day, but of course, meeting the president and in his office, all of that was pretty overwhelming.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
having said, yeah, yeah, I'm sure you would have maintained good relations with everyone there. But I'm starting off with just that idea of a DPS RK Puram, know it all, Arjun Kakkar going to college. Uh, sort of, what was it like? What hit you when you landed in Williams?
I mean, honestly, so I'll say this: Williams was a fantastic experience for me. And one of the things that they do really well is integrating you in the community. They have this thing called an entry system, and so what they end up doing is they put you in a group of like 20 to 23 other people, other students who are also first year students, and you all live together, you do things together, and so then that made it feel like somewhat of a family, and so it makes it pretty inclusive for someone coming as an international student. So that part was mostly handled. I think that one of the biggest changes for me was that I was super comfortable being around people and talking a certain way and things like that. And that kind of shifts subtly in a way that's hard to describe. It's something that like social interaction doesn't stay the same when you're not interacting with people that you've grown up with or lived around your whole life. And so that was one of the most challenging aspects for me, is to evolve the way that I think and talk to people. And yeah, I think but that said, like 4 years later, that's one of the like best things that I can remember about what I took from Williams as an experience. And so yeah, I would say that's it.
Super. So, how was it settling into a very different style of academics in a small liberal arts college? Do you think you were prepared?
Yeah, I think actually, like in a weird way, I was prepared because of the way that I had aligned my interests. Like I'd always seen myself as being someone who's interested in a lot of different things. And so when I had gone to college, I remember even when I applied, I told them that I was really interested in photography, I was really interested in math, all the sciences and things like that. And so and even philosophy, I remember that. Yeah. So that's why. So when I went there, I was able to just take all these courses at the same time, and so yeah, of course, that was like very different from what I was used to in DPS, where you study like a very specific thing, and which is something that DPS trained me to do, and I'm still good at. But then also, I had all these other interests, which like merged really well with the college. So like, my first semester there, I took a photography class, I took a philosophy class, I took a chemistry class, and a biology class. So then those were that was just like such a fun combination for me. Yeah.
Great. And in terms of the tutorial system or even just the seminar style humanities classes, was there something that you think you really made you learn something new or learn how to learn new things?
So I think so. I'll say this: the tutorial system is fantastic. Like my first semester there, I took a tutorial. It was the photography class that was actually a tutorial. And I think that every time, uh, like you go into one of those tutorials, it really does like help you think of work that you did for that class in a broader context and in also more depth. Um, so definitely with the photography class, I remember that I was thinking in a very specific way of things, and it helped me like broaden my perspective and like think think about like art, like photography as an artistic expression rather than something through which you can produce cool pictures and put on the internet. Um, but at the same time, I think that that follows for other classes that I took as well. I remember that I was not that great at writing. I will say that when I first went to Williams, I remember like I used to struggle writing emails to professors. I don't know if that's a common experience with other students, but I used to ask my friends like, is this appropriate to send? Like, what kind of language should I be using here? And so like one of the first classes I took as well, the by either the TA or the professor, depending on the day it is, and uh, and like that really like helped me like integrate like my writing style with what people were expecting. And so like in future courses, like that was something that was like really helpful as like a developmental um, pathway. Arshan, I think I lost your audio.
Hey, can you hear me now? I think I'm
Oh
back.
yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So I think it's amazing, just the idea of learning new things in a new environment, but also seeking help. I think that was interesting that you could connect with your friends. How's the social dynamic? Is it a? I know it's competitive, but it's more rigorous than competitive, I guess. That's
Hmm.
how you would describe.
So I think it's interesting. I think so. It's hard for me to encapsulate it in one kind of in one way, just because so even though there's only 2,000 people, there are a lot of niche communities and they can interact and like sort of behave in their own ways. The communities that I interacted in mostly, like I did not get any sense of competition from any of them. um Maybe if I was more like involved in the scientific like lab oriented fields, maybe I would have sensed more of it. But there's definitely a athletic culture at Williams, which is pretty strong, and also I think in general it's a pretty inclusive and welcoming community, and that's the first thing that you would feel going there, or I felt,
Got it.
yeah.
Awesome. What about the clubs, organizations, and the bells and whistles that make a college tick beyond just academics? What was so unique about your experience at Williams?
So I'll be honest, I'm quite an academic person, and that's what I did most of my time there. But I do know of things that other people did, and so for those that are interested in that kind of stuff.
Sure, sure, sure,
um,
sure.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happens at Williams. Like a lot of stuff that makes it unique. We have the most number of squash courts per capita. In I don't know if that's correct, but somebody said that. So yeah, so I ended up
Right.
playing.
So you definitely focused on your sort of pre-professional track. So do you think liberal arts education prepares you as well as those kind of wanted, most wanted, sort of highly selective Ivy League schools or the West
I think
Coast, Stanford and Berkeley's of the
so.
world?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think there's interesting ways of looking at this. So like let's say that you want to let's say you want to go into academia, and oh, maybe we'll talk about this later, but I wanted to go into academia, and so um so if you went to a large like Div 1 school, they would probably have like a whole set of courses that would be planned from beginning to end that you would end up taking in math, for example. So you would know like a bunch of group theory, you would know, but like a bunch of different kind of things that like then prepare you to go into grad school. But at Williams, it's not like that. Like you have a bunch of like core courses, like 10 or so, that you have to take as a part of your major. But other than that, you're free to do whatever you want. And so from that perspective, you don't have as rigorous of a training as somebody from a Div 1 school might in that particular specific field. And so um, And so because of that, there's a lot of gaps that you would have to fill in. But then
Sure.
on the
So how do you like walk us through your journey in mathematics? Like you went in undecided, sure,
yeah,
but then what happened? And beyond Williams, what did you do? And how do you think Williams as an education prepared you for that?
yeah. So I think that so my first math course that I took at Williams was my second semester there, and I really enjoyed it. It was multivariable calculus. It's like one of the first courses that a student might take going into college from India. And that was a fantastic experience for me. So I was like, oh, let's take more math courses. And then as I started getting into the major, I realized that the math professors at Williams are absolutely incredible. Some of the best people that I've met in the field, and it's just growing. Like when I was there, there weren't a lot of applied math people, but now that's expanded as well. So there's a fantastic mathematical community at Williams, and that was probably one of the big reasons that I ended up going into it. And so what I did at Williams was I was very interested in understanding applications of math in like a bunch of different fields. Like that was my way of combining all my interests together into like one major where I could say, this is something that I want to do. So like even in math, I took a bunch of courses that were so I took a computational biology course that was taught from like a mathematical perspective. Um, I took like a bunch of probability courses that were super applied. Took like a bunch of computational partial differential equation space courses. That these are all things that you can use to then apply to problems in the real world. My thesis project was on vegetation patterns, but it was in applied math. And so I think that that was kind of what interested me in applied math, and Williams was a large part in fostering that. And so then so I was able to take all these cool courses, but that meant
Sure.
that was at the expense of me knowing algebra, right? Abstract algebra. Um, and like to this day, I hate algebra. It's like something that I don't want to engage in. But that's a core part of something a person who wants to do math would want to know. So then after I finished my time at Williams, I applied to a bunch of grad schools, and I ended up going to UCLA for an applied math PhD program. Um, and uh, and yeah, and that was a very very different experience from what Williams was like. So like honestly, I think that the first question that you'd asked going from DPS to Williams was less of a dramatic change for me than going from Williams to UCLA math. Like it's that stark. Um, and like that's one of the things that I tell people like a lot, and it's hard for them to believe like how could two institutions in the same country be so different. And so I think this is a great example for some of your students to hear as well.
Yeah, definitely. So what is it about large schools? I don't want to talk more here, so I want to hear it from you.
yeah, I
The
mean,
good and not so good.
I think that here's what the experience was when I went to UCLA. A lot of students came from large Div 1 schools as well, and so they have a very strong, rigorous training in the field, right? They come from like a tradition of having produced like great students, and being taught by incredible professors like Terence Tao, who's one of the most famous mathematicians in the world, teaches at UCLA, right? So you would see him walk down the hallway. He was actually on crutches at the time, so you would see him like crutch down the hallway, and that's pretty wild, right? Like so those are things that would happen at a large institution, but at the same time. Almost all of the lectures that I took, professors just didn't seem to care. Like it was this maybe it's my expectations coming from Williams that everybody is going to be invested in your life and give you so much attention, but it wasn't like that at all. And so that was quite a stark shift. Like one of my professors would prepare like an hour before the lecture and then just come in and start writing on the board, and that's not at all what I was used to. So I think that those are like kind of the
Sure.
big things that you kind of have to weigh.
Right. And what about the plan then? PhD applied math sounds like, yeah, John Nash or something in the making. But the Arjun Kakkar I know is not really. I didn't really think of that. So what brought you, and then why did you quit?
Yeah, so basically what I ended up realizing is that a lot of the work, so even though you call it an applied math PhD, a lot of the work is still is from a very, very technical perspective. There is still not a lot of application that I would think is really an application. Like we don't, so in an applied math program, like you come in, you start learning like basic things. You start learning like about uh differential equations, how do you solve them, all this kind of stuff, and then you can like go on from there and like pick your trajectory within that. But a lot of the orientation that I was seeing at the time was towards like specific technical goals, like saying that, oh, like, I want to be able to engage in like trying to find like some kind of optimization algorithm in machine learning. Like, and so and while that's very interesting and like and could be fulfilling for people in its own right, like that's not something I was particularly interested in. I was mostly interested in this because of the for the sake of the application, not for the sake of how you get there as much. And so
So do
that's
you
kind of
think knowing this in while you were in Williams, making this decision would have helped? Did you
yeah.
get some signals from people who were mentoring you that maybe it's not for you, or it was just a leap of faith and you just wanted to go for it?
I honestly think that it's such a it's one of those things that you just have to try to know if it's for you.
Mhm.
I know, so like for grad school, a lot of people say that maybe take a couple of years and then go into it, and I think that that could have helped for me. But again, I don't know if that's good advice in general. So it's one of those things that you kind of have to try and see
Sure.
if does it work for you.
So how did you switch gears now? Now you're in New Jersey working for
Yeah,
a media company, and where
yeah.
is that whole computational and applied math being put to use, if at all?
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? Like, I think that's why I'm such a big proponent of a liberal arts education. Like, oh, grad school didn't work out. It's not the end of the world, right? You still have all these things that you learned in college, like all these ways in which you understood that you could think of your expertise or your role, and how do you want to then apply it? And so basically, what happened is that I ended up leaving UCLA. I moved to New York, and I was teaching for a little while, and that didn't work out as well. But at the time, I found this really cool organization called the Pudding, and so these people, I just found them through a Vox video actually. Like I was watching a bunch. I watch so much YouTube, like hours a day. So like one of these videos was a person from the Pudding, this online publication, uh, worked on this video. It was about like pitch in music and how they were trying to investigate whether the occurrence of a falsetto, which is a really high pitched voice that male singers use. Has been showing up more and more in recent music, citing examples like Bruno Mars and stuff like that. So and so this was like data analysis done on a random like pop culture type thing, and then presented in a way which was super engaging to me. So like this is so their specialization is doing interactive data visualizations and creating graphics that live online and investigate like random things about culture. And so I was like, this is so interesting because it combines some of the things that I've learned in college, some of the things that I'm interested in, and then like puts them together in this like unique and interesting way. So I had zero background in web development. I didn't know anything about JavaScript or anything like that. So but I was really comfortable in the fact that I could learn that pretty quickly if I wanted to. So I spent a couple of
Great. I
months.
think, yeah, like well
Yeah.
said. I think the fact that you just loved learning and Williams gave you that sort of background, sort of you quickly adapted and started finding your own path. And it's very relevant for students who are graduating this year or have just recently graduated, probably don't have jobs, or even high schoolers who are planning to go to college, but there is no college. Many colleges don't have anything to offer other than some online classes or anything else. So just being that finding that resilience is critical, and you've sort of demonstrated that. What are the other strengths you feel Arjun Kakkar brings to the table? If you were to pick three adjectives, it's like a rapid fire.
Yeah.
What are the three adjectives would describe your strengths, or not
I think
describe,
that
just the words?
I don't know if I can do three on the spot, but I think one of the big ones is that I'm like very curious and like willing to learn at all times. Like anything new, I'm like interested in. Um, so like uh, just to expand my knowledge and see what I can do with things that I've like learned in the past.
So
Um,
inquisitive. So that's
that's
one.
yeah, yeah, captured however you want. Then second, I think I really like to work with people, like draw on their strengths and stuff like that. And so I haven't talked about some of the stuff that I did at Williams, but I was a part of this like research project where we published a paper that only happened because of the expertise of four different people, which was like a fantastic expression of how liberal arts experience can help. Um, and so that's the
What
second
was
one.
the
I
paper about? No, it's interesting. What was the
Oh, this
paper? It
was
was
this
multidisciplinary.
was an, so to speak. So it was still an applied math. It was about like tiling of tetrahedron. It's a very this is
Okay.
it's just this abstract thing that most people might not care about. But it was a really fun experience. Like I came with a computational perspective. A bunch of other people came from like algebraic or like analytical perspectives, and like we were able to combine that into a really cool project. But yeah. So
Super.
yeah, working with cool people who bring together like a lot of different ways of thinking, and um, and yeah, I think the third one is that I'm like curious and I always ask questions. I'm always interested to know what other people are doing. I'm interested to understand like how they got to where they got to, and what do they do with their lives, and like how can I use some of that?
Yeah, just being interested in people, listening with your
Yeah,
eyes as well. I think it's important. So great, great, awesome. So lots to learn. I'm sure viewers, listeners would gain from this conversation. I am learning so much. Uh, Very quickly, what do you think about preparation for college as a high school student, going back a few years down, uh, not down the road, but back in time, let's say? Uh, what would you advise high school students to know or search for before even thinking of studying in the US or going to a liberal arts college?
yeah, I think that's a great question, honestly. And I often think about what situation I was in at the time when I was applying as well. I think a lot of it comes down to like genuine introspection, like genuinely thinking about like like what do you appreciate in life? Like what is it about your experience up till now in school? And it's not a long experience, but what is it about your experience up till that point in school that you genuinely enjoy, right? Like cultivate like your experiences around that. I remember like there was a huge rush for obtaining certain extracurriculars and stuff like that, and that probably still exists. I'm not in the circles anymore, but I think organizing all those types of things, like all those like pieces that people talk about around things that you're genuinely excited about. I think that's what's going to help at the end of the day. And then in terms of making a decision about which school to go to, I will always be the biggest proponent of going to a liberal arts school because it worked so well for me. Um, but do the work and actually try to figure out what the school is about. Like I clearly didn't do all the work and figured out what was the environment at UCLA like. And I can tell you that those were two massively different experiences, and one did not work out as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so the one that worked out, luckily I was part of that. So at Williams.
Yeah.
So what are the fondest memories of working with our team at Edbrand, and yeah, anything that comes to mind?
We, I don't even think that there's like a way to encapsulate the kind of the wild things that we all did. I remember I think that like maybe one of the biggest things that you introduced in my thinking at the time was was genuinely trying to express yourself. Like that's something that I hadn't um, thought about. Like, and this was specifically in the context of the college essay, but I think it also applies broadly, right? Because a lot of times, especially as a student, you don't think about yourself in any kind of way. Like, or I didn't. You mostly just like carry on, live your life, do as you're instructed. But it's not there isn't a lot of process of understanding how your trajectory is evolving and evaluating on the basis of um, like just deeply understanding that. And so I think that was like the biggest thing that you that you brought in me, and I'm
Right.
appreciative for that every day. Yeah.
Hey, thanks. I think we learn so much from each student. And I think what we definitely sort of think of when helping students identify stories they want to work with, it's a mentoring opportunity beyond just the college admissions. You get to know the person so well and probably nudge their thinking in a certain way. And while doing that, you learn so much more about the human existence and the human condition rather. And then every student has dispositions, family backgrounds. It's just
Yeah.
fascinating to hear those stories. Of course, we want to not have the blacklisted or brownlisted topics, which end up nowhere. So helping students not worry about the breakup or loss of a pet or so and so forth, and focus on something which is meaningful, will help admissions get to really know you as a human being. So that's fantastic. Finally, anything as word of advice for high school or college students who graduated this year? This podcast was actually an inspiration to get them feel that we all care about them. Uh,
Yes.
so yeah, anything that you'd want to say?
I would honestly say that um I was at a very like difficult position a couple of months back where I was trying to figure out exactly how to navigate myself in like the like job space. I didn't have a lot of experience with it, and I think that that's of course that all is exacerbated now in the current situation. But I think in a lot of ways I can relate to what a lot of people might be feeling at this time. And I think that the biggest thing that you can do is just like keep doing your thing, be free in your like expression, don't think of your role or your interest in a limited way, and try to expand on all the and include all the things that you're interested in that search, and just persevere. That I think those are the biggest things that I can say. Yeah.
Hey, thanks. A fascinating conversation, going back memory lane, and also the fact that now I feel that it's just so easy to just connect with you and find out how you could be invited to some of our webinars, the panels, where we could even include some of our recent students or even high school students to just engage with someone who's done a very high level of math, but also just brings in life experiences to share. Awesome. So looking forward to those discussions, and thank you again for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian.